incident. That's what it's going to be.
That's what I was thinking. It's
so
kind of in that ball.
So it's
you're not going to go to jail.
No one has actually... So this is a working group that's come up with this definition, and the release of the definition has been delayed and delayed and delayed, largely, I'm pleased to say, due to the Free Speech Union's campaigning and the work of other groups. Part of it has also been to do with optics. It was meant to come out around the time when the Bondi Beach terrorist attack happened. Obviously, then that wasn't going to be great if they released it. And then after the Gorton and Denton by-election, or just before, and it was looking like you don't want to look like Labour's pandering too much to the Muslim vote, which they obviously want to get back from the Greens. They've now decided to release it. And at the beginning, it was going to be called an Islamophobia definition. They then changed it to anti-Muslim hostility to try and frame it as though that free speech people shouldn't have a concern about it. And then they ended up getting rid of the bit that conflated Islam with race, because obviously Islam isn't a race, it's an ideology, should be free to criticism by anyone. And now they still have this bit which is so vague that speaks about prejudicial stereotyping about Muslims and Muslimness. Now, that is still going to make it very difficult to talk about, for example, grooming gangs, Islamist terrorism, everything that we know that is far more likely to happen within Muslim communities, such as FGM, or forced marriage, or honour-based violence against girls. The girls in these communities will be some of the most affected and forgotten victims of this Islamophobia definition, which they have now branded as anti-Muslim hostility. So it's still just as bad, well, perhaps not quite as bad, but it's still very bad. And they'll argue, some people say, but we have an anti-Semitism definition. Firstly, the definition for anti-Semitism wasn't created by a hand-picked group, by the government internally. It was created by the International Holocaust Remembrance Association, and places adopted it. It wasn't created by a hand-picked group. By the way, every member on this group that has come up with this definition has links to Islamists. I urge everyone to go and read the Free Speech Union's report into these people.
How do they get around the table?
I know. So
nobody look at the CV.
I know. All of the people on the group agree that we need an Islamophobia definition, despite the fact that there are people like Fayez Magool and Pragna Patel who've previously said that we don't need one of these because it's going to make it very difficult to talk about these things. And these are people who campaign against racism or hostility and all of these things against Muslims, but they don't want to have the definition. But they didn't pick those people to be on the working group.
So what am I allowed to get mad about them? Because
at the beginning, we don't know.
I mean, at the beginning of the show, I listed, and I sat in my kitchen this morning with a nice mug of coffee, getting more and more annoyed by the second, just as I was writing this stuff, thinking, I've got so much material here, I don't know, how to edit this down into a few examples. I mentioned the Batley school teacher. That's always a, poor fella's in hiding for the rest of his life because people wanted him pretty much killed because he dared to show a cartoon of a prophet or something. But then we had, and I think the Wakefield incident was much more disturbing in some respects because but what I hadn't seen, by the way, this is a kid that scuffed a Quran, right? You know the story. I hadn't actually until today seen a picture of the scuffed Quran.
Yeah.
I actually seen a picture, and I was literally a little scratch on the corner of a page. I mean, this is Monty Python territory, for God's sake. And what happened after that, not only did we have the head teacher, Mr. Griffiths, hello, Mr. Griffiths, who came out and said, and this is where it all goes wrong for me. He said, we would like to reassure all of our community that the holy book, remains fully intact. That's good. I mean, he's talking as if, he's like the meaning
this is
of...
before we had an Islamophobia definition.
Yes,
I don't think we need one, because
the
it's clearly
holy
one that
book
already operates.
Thankfully, he came out to the school gates. Thankfully, the holy book is intact. Really? So he came out and said that. He said, however, we've made it clear that the actions of the kids did not treat the Quran with the respect it should have had. So those involved have been suspended. So the kids were suspended. But then it got so much worse because they convened what to me I could only do. I'm not trying to be smart saying this. It looked like a Sharia court when they had the imam there, the top cop, the counsellor, the poor mother was there, some other character pitched up, and they sat there on a stage addressing the assembled media. And it's worth having a reminder of what the imam had to say on that day.
Any Muslim in Wakefield, Halifax, where I'm from, Bradford, Dewsbury, United Kingdom or outside the United Kingdom will never tolerate the disrespect of the Holy Quran. Never. Why? Because we will sacrifice our lives for it. We will give anything in the honor of Allah. We don't let this go. We don't just say, it doesn't matter, it's nothing. No, the reason why we were raised all this, the reason why I traveled early hours in the morning this morning to attend this meeting is because the Quran is more important to it than our lives.
Right, that man is a lunatic. Let's get that out of the way straight away. Right, are we both now breaking? Are we going to be in cuffs by the end of the hour, Connie? Because we've now got a negative view of this particular person. I think, by the way, the local mosque, and I'm not going to put his name on the tin of this, but somebody with very similar looks also made there was a video we uncovered a while back talking about the outrageousness of homosexuality. And I'm thinking, right, okay, and this is the fellow we're meant to be listening to? I mean, a chief police officer sitting next to him, a counsellor?
A man who clearly the police see as authority. He is saying in explicit terms that he would happily sacrifice his own life for a book.
Yes.
And this is what is so awful about the way that the West views Islamism. We're not able to understand the fact that there are people in the world, in our own country in fact, that would happily lose their own life for a book. And that's why we don't understand things that are happening in Iran. The Prime Minister thinks that you can negotiate with a regime like Iran, not understanding that these are people who will happily sacrifice their own kids for an ideology. I mean, I'm not saying that's what this chap believes, but he's saying it quite clearly.
Yes, I mean, he said we're not going to let it go. It's like, mate, you're talking about a kid that scuffed a book that means nothing to that kid, nothing to most people in this country. And even if you are a follower of that faith, I respect anyone who has their own beliefs as well. I have an envy of people who believe they can sort of see and experience this God character around their lives. Amazing, go nuts with your religion, whoever you are. But the idea that for him it crosses some kind of line, similarly with the Batley school, he would die for it. The Batley school teacher should be dead because he did the cartoon prophet thing. And I haven't even got into the anti-Israel marches, some of the mad imam, mad preachers that are out there, medieval views on gay rights, women's rights, counsellors that can barely speak English. Yeah. I mean, there is a subculture here that is growing, and I'm going to say this again, I have to say this, Connie, for the record, and I always make the point that there are some people out there who have Ofcom on speed dial. Obviously, we're not talking about every Muslim here. We're talking about fanatics, extremists, Islamists, and the like. It's the second biggest religion in the country, so that's the one we would talk about, and this is very much what the Islamophobia rule is there to debate. Why would we not be talking about these examples?
I should just say about the anti-Semitism definition, because I didn't finish what I was saying about that. We have had an anti-Semitism definition for a very long time. How has that helped Jews? We saw 2 Jews murdered in Manchester just before Christmas. We saw a huge terrorist attack foiled. Jews have to have security outside of their synagogues and schools. Everywhere they go, they're having to take... They were told by the police. Gideon Falter was told that he was too openly Jewish to walk past a pro-Palestinian march. There's been an anti-Semitism definition for years. And he was told that he couldn't walk past the march. So what do people
literally
think?
by a police officer.
So what do people think that a definition is going to help Muslims for? Anyway, even Jonathan Hall KC, who is the guy who runs the anti-terrorism legislation advice, has said that this is going to stop people from being able to talk about important things like terrorism. And finally, Ian, I must tell you, so the chair of the working group that's coming up with this definition is a man called Dominic Grieve. Now,
we remember Big Dom.
Dominic Grieve wrote the foreword to the Islamophobia definition in 2018, which said that Islamophobia was rooted in racism. He supported that definition. He claims that he didn't, but he put it in black and white. He did. Now, in 2009, he said this: "The reluctance to challenge negative cultural imports into our country by some immigrants, including discriminatory practices against women and corrupt political and electoral practices, is one of the most troubling consequences of a culture that wishes to avoid offence and accusations of racism." He said that in 2009, and now he's the chair of the group that has come up with a definition which will do exactly that. Stop people from talking about things in case they're accused of racism or Islamophobia. So what has happened to Dominic Grieve?
What happened to Big Dom? That's a whole other... We can open the phone lines on that.
Well,
oh, someone might have an answer for us. Interestingly, of course, he's been a bit of an agitator of the last Conservative government. He was very, very angry about Brexit and stuff like that. But on this, I mean, he's a very experienced lawyer himself, so you might think some consistency wouldn't be too much to ask.
But it's known that he's been taking advice from the Muslim Council of Britain, which, of course, every government in recent years had a non-cooperation policy with because of their links to extremists, and MEND as well, another Muslim group that has links to extremists. These are the people that Dominic Grieve has been taking advice from, despite previously having made... I mean, there are other comments he made as well about Pakistani community being politically corrupt. He said things that would most certainly fall foul of this definition.
Which he now is, he's authored
if there are any journalists going to speak to the government about this today, ask them, would Dominic Grieve's previous comments now fall foul of the definition that he has now come up with?
Where is Dominic Grieve now? I don't mean like at 1:45. I mean, I know that he's no longer an MP, of course. He was Attorney General, of course, for a while, under the Tories. So he's had senior positions. He's a very, amiable man when you meet him and stuff like that. But, I mean, that's a whopper of a contradiction and a reverse ferret of your views, right?
He told the FSU that his views haven't actually changed.
Well, they clearly have.
Yeah.
I mean, demonstrably so. Oh, I've just been told he's the Vice President of the European Movement UK. Me neither. Listen, Connie, great.